Hello and welcome to Business Weekly. I am Umar Kaltungo. Now coming up on the show, the Central Bank of Nigeria at its Monetary Policy Committee meeting recently decided as follows. Monetary policy rate increased by 100 basis points to 12%, narrowed the asymmetric corridor from plus 200 to minus 700 basis points to plus 200 to minus 500. Cash reserves ratio increased by 22.5% from 20%. Retained liquidity ratio at 30%. The MPC decision clearly chose to fight inflation, currently at 11.4%, by trading off the slow growth with the GDP growth rate at 2.8% year in, year on. Now, the committee decided to do what they can and left the growth aspect to fiscal authorities, hoping that the 2016 budget, with 30% capital expenditure of about 1.8 trillion naira, will help in reflating the economy and also subduing high unemployment, currently at 10.4%. The MPC predictably left dollar exchange rate at 199 naira to the dollar, perhaps because it is a no-go area given the president's stance on the official devaluation, while expressing optimism that the dollar scarcity will reduce or recede if oil price continue to go up, currently at about $40 per barrel. In the immediate, fixed income assets may be repriced and banks may jack up interest rate, given reduced liquidity and higher cost of borrowing from central bank standing loan facility window. Now, tightening of liquidity may also help in reducing demand pressure of foreign exchange, especially by speculators. This, according to economic pundits, is the best MPC decision in their difficult circumstance, and hopefully this will give portfolio investors clear direction about President Buhari's policy direction. Now, one major highlight of the recent National Economic Council retreat is manufacturing. Manufacturing activities have significant impact on the economy of a nation. In developed economies, for instance, they account for a substantial proportion of total economic activities. In Nigeria, the subsector is responsible for about 10% of total GDP annually. In terms of employment generation, manufacturing activities account for about 12% of total labor force in the formal sector of the nation's economy. This is why manufacturing statistics are relevant indices of the economic performance of a nation. Now, manufacturing statistics, as a component of industrial statistics, provide information on such sectoral activities as total production, costs and other outlays accompanying such productions, interrelationship between wages, salaries, interest rates, depreciation, business taxes, and operating surpluses. Consequently, manufacturing statistics, like other elements of economic statistics, are invaluable in the preparation of tables of national aggregates, such as the national accounts and input-output tables. Now, to discuss these and other issues on manufacturing, I sat down with Sulaiman Umar, the managing director of Tofa Textiles in Kano.
My name is Sulaiman Umar. I'm the MD of Tofa Textile Limited. I'm also the chairman of the Bompai branch of Manufacturer Association here in Kano.
Fantastic. So, there's this current issue on ground now, the National Economic Council Summit. One of the issues is manufacturing in government's effort to diversify the economy. Has there been any input from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria?
Yes, I mean, the man has always had input in the government. I think we've been lucky as an association. Unlike other associations, we've always been, part and parcel of the federal economic policy. Man has a permanent seat on the economic management team. We have seats on all committees in the Ministry of Trade and Investment, Finance, and, so our input is there.
But apparently these policies are not favoring the manufacturing sector. Look at interest rate, trade balance and the differences and all that.
Anyway, how far so far about this new economic change that we are seeing in this country towards diversifying the economy?
Well, we have heard promises and we have seen signs since they've put a certain item, I think 41 items on the ban list that they cannot access forex.
Yes.
They have, so we've seen signs of where they are heading. The problem is, you see, I think where the most problem is, over the years there's been so much neglect on the sector. So you will not expect just 1, 2, 3 policies to fix the problem, because you have the problem of power, you have the problem of infrastructure, of the roads coming into the industrial estate, roads from rail from, say, the ports to the hinterlands, us here that are in Kano. So these are all sectors that have neglected. So unless all these things are addressed, it will take a while before you see the issues of, manufacturing actually taking the forefront.
Talking about the textile industry, sir.
Yes.
That's perhaps your main area of operation now.
Yes.
Lots of the textile industries have collapsed.
Yes.
What's your staying power, sir?
Why we lasted? Well, we've been lucky. I think we're in a niche market. We don't produce normal cloth and this thing. We do blankets and things like that. Which, lucky for us, there's only 2 companies in the whole of West Africa that does that, both in Nigeria. So, but we're still struggling. We're not exactly, say, in peak condition. But when you've been in a business for long, you figure as long as you can break even, why close down? Since you are employing a large number of people here, earning their livelihood, feeding their family here. If you say you're going to shut down, then what happens to them? So I think our policy is, as long as the company is breaking even, will not shut down. But then eventually, to break even, you have to make cuts here and there, whereby sometimes you cut employees, sometimes you cut the quality of what you make, which is not, in the long run, is not helping the business.
But then there was this textile fund, assumed fund of, was it 100 billion?
Yes, 100 billion.
Where is it? None of these textile industries are springing up again.
Well, you see, the problem is with the textile is like every other thing in Nigeria. Money is not only the problem. Okay. When the textile fund was created, it was a whole CTG process, policy that has to do with the whole cotton, textile, and garment sector. And there were a lot of promises. There was going to be ban on imported textiles. There was going to be patronage from the government. There was going to be supply of power at a cheaper rate. There was going to be supply of diesel at a cheaper rate to all the textiles. These things were not all done. The only thing that was done was the funding. So if they fund you and your cost of production is high, where are you going to go and sell your goods? I think this is what caused the problem. Fundamentally, the cost of production in Nigeria is extremely high compared to the countries we're trying to compete with, be it the India, the Chinas, the Indonesias, the Malaysias, So this is what we're facing. Power now is on getting to almost 14 naira at the new rates. In India, the manufacturer is paying about 11 naira per kilo to oil. This is it. So you see, this is just on one issue. Then for us that we're here in Kano, for example, it costs me the same to ship a container from China to Lagos as it does from Lagos to Kano. So I have doubled the cost. And these are all things. Why? Because there's lack of rail, I have to take it by road. So if it takes me 400,000 naira, for example, to ship a container from China to Lagos, then I pay an additional 450,000 or so naira and bring it to Kano again. This adds my cost.
Yes, that's
What
about interest rate?
Interest rate is an issue, but it's not the prime issue as for the textile sector, because this fund that was provided to the textile sector is on a single digit, about 4.5%, which is extremely low compared to anywhere in the world. I think apart from you go to exactly. So the rate on a general level, yes, the rate is a problem. The rate itself would hinder other businesses.
Yes.
Because without these development funds around, special funds from CBN and this thing, I don't think any manufacturer can go to a commercial bank now and say, look, I want an interest rate.
With the
It's not going to happen. A long-term interest rate at 20-something%, obviously, is not going to happen. And what the manufacturer needs is a long-term rate. You need 20 years, 15 years loan. And if you're paying 20%, how are you going to pay that back? Even at the 4.5%, we think is high. You know, if you're thinking long-term, 20 years or something long, then 1%, 2% is what should be ideal to boost manufacturing.
But let's look at this currency, the drama of currency devaluation or not to devalue and other. How is it going to affect the manufacturing sector if it is devalued eventually, or if it is not devalued?
Well, if it's devalued, it's what happens is your raw material becomes more expensive. Because unfortunately for us, the raw material side of business in Nigeria, be it sourcing, has been neglected. You know, if you're into agro-allied, if you're into whatever, the crops that are being, you know, grown are not meeting the standards that you need. Sometimes you're not even getting the supply that you need. So you'd have to import some of your raw material. So any devaluation adds to your cost, where you know, making it harder for you to compete. So I think on the manufacturing side, I don't think it's the best idea. But what the government can do, I think, is have two tiers if they want. For the manufacturer, they maintain this level, then have a second tier of, you know, call it the interbank rate, and let that one flow freely. That can be accessed for by the importers, by the people paying school fees, medical bills, whatever. But then as a genuine, you know, importer, then you should have some kind of concession rate to bring in your raw material. Because without that, with all the other hurdles you have in the country, your goods will never be competitive.
That's true. But this buy made in Nigeria campaign recently, has government started patronizing you people?
Well, we're not sure. You know, this is what the problem is. I think half of the problem is that, for example, take the textile sector, for example.
There's a huge market.
It's a huge market just by the government itself. Be it uniform for the paramilitary, for the NYSC, for so many things. The same thing with the blankets, the same thing with boots and everything. So even with just government contracts, if government can guarantee you that market, then you know, a lot of these businesses on the textile side will stay afloat. Take us that we are in the blanket sector. The only two of us in Nigeria manufacturing this thing. So if you take between the relief agency, the paramilitaries, the prisons, and so on and so forth, we'll be in production 24 hours a day throughout the year, and we probably cannot even meet the government demand itself. But because the contracts doesn't come directly to the companies, it gets given out to individuals, and the individuals source their goods elsewhere. We are left in a very dire state. So I think patronage is key. You know, so we've been advocating through MAN and this thing for, like, you know, some gesture from the powers that be it from the legislature, from the executive. Like, for example, whenever this government is doing its, the executive is doing an executive council meeting, let them wear made in Nigeria textiles. Just for that 1 week. Once a week or once a month, the National Assembly can decide, okay, today we're going to, top to bottom, we're going to wear made in Nigeria, be it the clothes, the shoes, and everything. And when they come out, they are being interviewed by the media. They can tell them, look, this cloth is from so factory in Kano or in Zaria or in Lagos or somewhere. The same thing, this shoe was made in Kopa Wambeya in Kano or was made in Aba. And this is, you send a message to...
Which will
and you know you're serious, you know. But when nobody does that, nobody even mentions it, nobody even talks about it. Everybody just talk, buy made in Nigeria. But one person, make one key person in the government that is actually buying made in Nigeria. This is, not to mention the thing to trickle down to the grassroots.
So you're otherwise calling on the federal government and state government to key into these made in Nigeria campaigns.
Yeah, I think they should put
by doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think they should put their money where their mouth is. They've been campaigning this thing, then show it. Show it. Yes, we are serious about this thing. We are not just talking about it. We are serious. So we're going to be like the first lady. She's going out with her. All these first ladies around the country. Yeah, they were made in Nigeria, African print. Go to events with them wherever they're going to be publicly seen. They should wear that.
Okay, let's look at our interest rate now, which has jumped to 11 point something percent recently. How is it affecting the manufacturing sector?
Well, I mean, it's definitely going to affect, and it's not just the manufacturing sector, it's going to affect the real sector in general. Any long-term project cannot function with that kind of high interest rate, be it agriculture, be it anything you can think of, any sincere business, as long as you're not going to be importing and selling, the rate is outrageous. It cannot happen. Unless you're going to pay back the money.
Nigeria's inflation is higher now.
Yes.
So which means your raw materials that you are buying locally will cost more.
Of course. Everything is going up. We all know it. And tantamount to it is the problem is we keep getting told is the dollar, because we are primarily an importing nation. And this is what puts us in this dilemma. The moment the naira loses value, every other thing you can think of, even the staple food, be it rice, be it everything, it raises in value because we're primarily an importing nation. So we need to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, look, we're spending money where we don't need to. We're wasting money. So let's just boost agriculture, boost the manufacturing, and then that way our need for the dollar itself would increase, whereby the naira will appreciate, and after appreciating, the few items that we have to import will be cheaper for us.
Okay, let's look at your manufacturing process. You are into blankets.
Yes.
Not textile.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It is textile.
Not regular clothes.
Yes.
One will wonder, why blankets? Why not clothes? Because people wear clothes more than use blankets. Because one can buy a blanket and use it for 5 years.
Yeah.
But clothes, there's high turnover.
Yeah, there might be high turnover, but it's everything. There's a need for everything. That's why we're in it. If there's no need, we'll not be in it. The point of the matter, you can have a blanket for 5 years, but then what is the birth rate in Nigeria? It's very high. What is the number of people that go into universities every year? What are the number of people that get drafted in the services? And each additional person would need a blanket at one point in time, especially if you're up north here, whereby the harmattan is very harsh. And the good thing is we don't just service Nigeria, we service a lot of West African countries, because there's no company that produces blanket anywhere in West Africa. So you see, and the reason why we've survived is because we're doing that. If we're into making regular cloth like African print or something, we would be out of business by now, because then we would be competing with the imports from China, from India, from everywhere, and in the market. And this is why we've survived this long. This company has been in existence since 1963. It's one of the first indigenous, one of those when the industrialization policies just after independence. That's when this company was set up, and it's been and not a day it was shut down for more than a few months or something. So it's been in operation since then. This is why we're that.
But with lack of power, how do you survive? Generator?
Well, generator is the only option you have. I think
solar for.
Well, solar you can, but then the cost. With the amount of solar we would need to run this factory, the cost of it, you're talking tens of millions of dollars for us to have the batteries to back it up to date. So it's not a small investment. This is where the government comes in. Government can say.
Averagely, how much do you spend on power generation?
Power generation, where percentage is power in most manufacturing, power is at least minimum is at least 30% of your production cost. That is minimum in any be it any production company manufacturer will tell you in Nigeria. Some can go higher based on they have a higher power demand also, but the average price based on our own knowledge in man is 30% goes to power.
And this is transferred to the end consumer.
You have to. Well, you have to. Are you going to sell at a loss? If you're selling at a loss, then you'll be out of business. Well, the bank industry, all they can do, or bank administrator can give you, all they can do is give you a loan at a single-digit rate. Beyond that, are they going to reduce the cost of power for you? It's not their job. Are they going to, reduce the cost of transportation from Lagos to Kano or fix the railway? It's not their job. So all they can do.
Transportation is a major issue for.
It is a major issue for us here in the hinterlands. Like I said, you could, if the rails were working, you can probably transport your container or your raw material at a tenth of the cost. But because it's not functioning, and then you have to consider all the things along the way that happen. The roads are not good, so if your container probably takes 4 or 5 days to get to Kano from Lagos.
That is if there is no accident.
Yes, exactly. So there are so many costs to being in business in Nigeria.
So what would you advise the government to set as a target now?
Well, look, I think what they have to do is we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I think what we have to do is simplify things. Sometimes we like in Nigeria, we like these grand policies. We like grand policies. That's why, because we want our policy to touch everything. But sometimes we have to go on the micro level. Take, for example, if you take Textile, for example, okay, the government can say, okay, look, there are 2 blanket operating companies in Nigeria. And we know among all the government agencies, we probably buy 2, 3, 4 million pieces of blankets.
Particularly now that we have the IDP.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, So every year we buy at least 4 or 5 million pieces of blanket. So we share it half. You take 2.5, you take 2.5 among the 2 companies, and we give it to them directly and say, look, be producing this and stocking it for us. Whenever we need it, we'll come and be taking it. We agree on a price with you. We do everything. With that, just one move, you've protected these 2 companies directly. They will be operating 24 hours a day, which means they'll have to add staff. So between these 2 companies, you can see about between 2,000 to 4,000 people employed. That's straight out. But there were just one move. The same thing you translate to other sectors. Take the people that are making shoes or boots.
Yes.
We know how many boots we have. We have coppers, the ones making garments. How many coppers do we pass through every year? How many garment manufacturers do we have in Nigeria? Let's share this load among them. How many uniforms for soldiers do we sew every year? So we give it to them directly, and the money goes directly. Even the government, it's government. It can even give them advance. The moment it gives them the money advance, they don't even need a loan. If they don't give them advance, they can say, okay, look, go to the BOI. We'll guarantee you with the BOI. We'll give you a loan to buy raw material and do this thing, but we'll guarantee to purchase whatever you produce. With that, before you know it, with just this small move, you will create nothing less than 50,000 jobs. And this is a simple thing. But because we like grand policies, we end up with so huge, should I say, white elephant projects that will never materialize. But if you go on the micro level, pick each sector, you make plastic this way, the government uses it, and that kind of thing.
Inject some life into that.
Exactly, inject your life, and directly you create employment. With just that move. And I don't think all that we're talking about now, between the garments and the blankets and everything, it will cost in a year, it will cost the government up to 10 billion. It won't. It probably wouldn't to purchase all those things. So with 10 billion, you can create probably 50,000 jobs or more instantly.
Now that's all we can take in this edition of the show. Join us next week for more. Many thanks indeed for watching. I am Umar Kaltungo.